headlines in 2016, and all of a sudden there's no such thing as a Biden rule, right? It's wives' tale. It's a mystery. No, no, no. We're actually doing what you said we should have done back when you were advocating for your rule. So when we look at the Second Amendment and the Supreme Court being at a 4-4 split, you know, a few months ago when there were considerably more candidates fielding the option of running for president, you know, it was relatively crowded, you know, especially on the GOP side. Okay? 17 candidates, 17 people who were actually vying for the highest office in America, right? Of course, after the dust settled, we have Donald Trump, okay? And there were a few people who said, well, they want to do this never Trump movement type of thing. I had some reservations about his gun positions before, and listening to him at the National Rifle Association's annual meeting, I personally felt that he came through loud and clear that he was going to be a supporter of gun rights. He actually told us, vote for me. I will not let you down. And he started telling us how he likes guns, right? He has a concealed carry permit out of the state of New York. So, yes, he appreciates the ability to have a firearm and to protect himself. On the other side, I think as of just yesterday, right, Bernie Sanders finally capitulated, right? Just 4 weeks ago, he was saying that Hillary Clinton was unfit to be president of the United States. And now, all of a sudden, he had a coming to an epiphany, right? And now, all of a sudden, Hillary is most qualified to lead us. But when I looked at their positions, these positions, these public statements that they made not too long ago, they were very clear that they were severely against the Second Amendment. You would hear Hillary Clinton say things such as, well, I believe the Supreme Court got it wrong on Heller. I believe they got it wrong on McDonald. When you look at what those court cases truly meant, the very idea that you as a citizen of this country, the very idea of you being able to have a firearm in your home is on the table in this upcoming election. With the next justice on the Supreme Court, just the very idea that you could have a gun in your home, not a carry permit to concealed carry, or in some cases, depending on their laws in some states, a license to open carry, like Texas, you need a license to open carry and concealed carry. But the very idea that you can have a gun for personal protection, just in case some bad guy is so emboldened to kick in your side door, climb in your window, and to assault and put your family in jeopardy and in harm's way. That idea is truly on the table today. And what we have to do as voting citizens is to make a decision as to whether the Second Amendment is that important to us, that we're going to cherish it and that we're going to keep it, and we're going to leave it in force for generations after us. Bernie Sanders, before he capitulated the other day, I believe it was just yesterday, his favorite term was that he felt that the only firearms that should be legal for possession are guns that can only be used for hunting. Okay? Hunting. If you didn't know, I am here to tell you that the Second Amendment was not given to us in the Bill of Rights for hunting. The Second Amendment was given to us in case, just in case our government turned tyrannical. Okay? Just in case they didn't listen to our grievances. Just in case they didn't do our bidding. Just in case they promised us the world and we voted for them and they decided to turn their backs on the Constitution and elect and implement and enact laws that run contrary to the rule of law. And when people say, well, gee, Rick, tyrannical, aren't you kind of going out there on a ledge? You know, when I look at some of the things that some politicians are pushing right now and how they're mischaracterizing it, the big push they have right now is this no-fly, no-gun business. And the way they try to mislead you they try to mislead you by saying, well, hey, if you're a terrorist, it only makes sense that you should not have a gun, right? Do we all agree that terrorists should not have a gun? So if you're on this no-fly list, no gun. Well, there's a huge problem with this no-fly list. No one knows who's actually running this no-fly list. No one can tell you how you got onto the no-fly list. No one can tell you how to get off of this list. So in the eyes of the government, depending on what office they hold, each and every one of you people in this very room today, because you support the Republican Party, because you support Republican candidates, because you are so emboldened to come out on a Wednesday evening, you've forsaken all of the wonderful activities we can do today. You're coming on after work here to talk politics with the GOP. You know what? You all must be terrorists. Put you all on the no-fly list. And because you're on the no-fly list, now you can't get a gun. And you know what? We're going to make America safer now, just because you all have been identified as terrorists. Obviously, that's a gross trespass against the whole concept of due process, right? No way, shape, or form won't have their rights taken away from them without an ability to address their accuser, without pleading their case in a court of law and forcing the people, the government, who are seeking to take away your rights without having some form of judicial review. I think it's the most un-American thing in the world, this no-fly, no-gun list, and especially the way that people are trying to mischaracterize it and scare you into sacrificing your rights. Today, it's gun rights and due process. It's only a matter of time before any of the other rights as afforded to us by the other amendments in the Bill of Rights come under assault. Okay? And so when I talk like this, I get a lot of interesting feedback online and in person when I go out and when I talk to people. And you know, sometimes I might take it to the envelope. Sometimes I might push the envelope and get to the edge. And I might say something along the line of, hey, when you're fighting for freedom, I'm quoting Jefferson, right? And he says, sometimes the tree of liberty must be nourished and fed with the blood of patriots and tyrants, right? And then, you know, at some point in time, if they haven't unfriended me or left some nasty note in my inbox at this time. Absolutely, for sure. And you know, on a personal note, I just got back from a trip out west, and every time I go through TSA, I'm wondering, is this the time that I'm going to find out that I'm actually on the no-fly list? But I made it out there, and I made it back. But when you talk like that, you know, obviously you're going to have some adverse reactions from some people, okay? But, you know, the reaction that I really and truly enjoy the most is when I get challenged on that whole concept of rising up against tyranny. I mean, after all, we're in a day and age when police chief can send in a robot bomb and take out a sniper, right? We're in a day and age where anything can pretty much happen, right? So when you tell people, you know what, yeah, it is possible for us to rise up if we wanted to. I haven't exactly came out and said that it is my 100% belief that our government is tyrannical, but you know what, I think with each passing day, with some of the things that they're proposing and doing, I think we're inching towards that point. I don't know when we're going to get there, but at some point in time, all of us collectively will say enough is enough. But even if tyranny hasn't appeared to this at this point, at this juncture, it may exist in the future. And if it may exist, if it may rear its ugly head, then I think we owe it to the next generation and those beyond that the opportunity to rise up against it. And so obviously the naysayers say, you know what, Rick, it's a pipe dream. It'll never happen. As a matter of fact, tell me at least one time when such an event has ever happened in the course of America's history. Just give me one time. And I love when I get challenged just that one time. Because if you haven't heard, I'm going to tell you a very short story about such an incident, such an uprising that indeed occurred in our country, in the United States, and on the date of this upcoming August 1st will be the 70th anniversary of this actual incident. I'm talking about none other than the Battle of Athens, Tennessee. How many of you have heard of the Battle of Athens, Tennessee? Quite a few of you. But guess what? There's a few of you that have not heard it. Exactly. And now, I was doing foreshadowing. And now you will hear it. Shortly towards the end of World War II, our servicemen were coming home from overseas from fighting for liberty and the cause of the freedom during World War II to battle the Axis foes. As our soldiers were returning home, and they slowly were becoming reacclimated to society in McMinn County of Tennessee, they realized that their local government had pretty much taken on all the characteristics of a tyrannical government. You had corruption that ran rampant. You had individuals who were in office who were not seeking to resolve the grievances of the populace, and it became a point in time in which our soldiers felt that something needed to be done to restore order in this county back in 1946. So eventually, these guys got together and said, you know what? It's too early to start shooting. So let us still seek to use the current system that's in place to get some changes made. And so the idea that they came up with was that they were going to field a slate of pro-freedom, pro-liberty, non-tyrannical government types to seek every office within that county. And they thought that that would be indeed the best way to do it, because obviously their locally elected leaders had no interest whatsoever in doing the right thing. So our GIs, our candidates, they campaigned throughout the day, throughout the night. They knocked on doors. Who knows how many babies they kissed, right? But they pressed and proceeded on. And as the election rolled around in that upcoming August, they had some really good thoughts, some really good feedback that they were going to do very well in that upcoming election. Okay? On the day of the election, however, things went for the worse. On election day, at the polling place, the corrupt sheriff of McMinn County brought in deputies. Not only did he bring in all his deputies, he actually had the audacity to hire 200 additional armed goons to participate in the election process. Yes, the sheriff of McMinn County had become threat. He fought his reign of terror and county. So as the day proceeded, and our guys and their election monitors were watching over the process, they repeatedly pushed off the side and not be allowed to participate, and not going on, raised those 200 additional goons, kept our back. It wasn't a black man by the name of Tom who chose to fight his way through the crowd and proceed on to the polling booth. He was accosted by a couple of deputies, he was socked in the back, and he was actually shot also in the back. And then he collapsed. And that was when all pandemonium broke loose. Everything happened. It was pure chaos. The sheriff, he said, well, hey, let us take the ballots for safekeeping down to the county jail. And of course, this turn of events did not sit well for our patriots. They had the sneaky suspicion that the sheriff was going to try to steal the election and allow himself to be reelected. Once this turn of events happened, our GIs formed a huddle right outside of the polling place. And they said, well, hey, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? They're trying to steal the election from us. So one of those enterprising, quick-thinking patriot GIs from overseas He came up with an idea. That's what this idea was. Let's get some guns. Go home and get guns. So they all went home and got guns. And if you know anything about guns and gun owners, a lot of people think us people up north like guns, but we have nothing on those guys down south. They love guns a whole lot more than we do. For the simple fact that back in the 40s, if you love guns and could operate a gun effectively and efficiently, you couldn't eat. Right? So obviously these guys had guns. They went home and brought everything that they had, and they amassed them in front of the polling place. Once they got there, they did a quick inventory, and they figured out that they didn't quite have enough. We didn't have enough. So what did our guys do? They thought and they thought, and they had another great idea. Let's go to the local, state, and federal armory, and let us borrow the guns that are there. And so they went to the armories, and they borrowed the guns. They found Colt 45 pistols. They found British Enfield rifles, and they amassed them in front of the polling place. And then they decided, yes, we have enough. So they took their guns and they went to the jail. The obvious goal is to take possession, to repossess the ballots and the voting box. Once they got there, they told them boldly, give us the ballots. The response from the sheriff and his deputies, I guess it should have been predictable. They started firing upon our patriots. Our patriots took cover, they tended to the wounded, and then began, in earnest, the Battle of Athens, Tennessee. And there was gunfire going back and forth, volleys throughout the day. This thing started sometime after 12 noon. It went through the early evening, late evening, midnight came and went. And then until the early morning hours of approximately 2:30 in the morning, it became a stalemate. Nothing was getting resolved. This thing was drawing itself out. The circumstances needed to be changed such that progress could be made. So our enterprising GI put together, and they hatched a new plan. This plan was to get the timeline and bail them together and start bombing the jails. And then, yes, they started lobbing bombs, and the jail is blowing up, and bricks are flying, debris and glass is breaking. Predictably, the sheriff, his deputies, and the 200 additional armed groups gave up and left the facility and allowed our veterans to take possession of not only the votes, the ballots, and the voting boxes. And then our patriots were able to take to the airwaves by radio and inform the citizens of what happened. They foreshadowed that freedom was near from the tyranny that had previously existed in the counties. And yes, later that day, they did indeed count up every one of those scoundrels were voted out of office. So, in telling this story, in addressing some of the comments I hear from people that they make certain statements about being ardently in support of the Second Amendment, I tell them the story, and I give them two key learning points from this whole Battle of Athens story. The first takeaway from this story is that the Second Amendment was not given to us for hunting. It was a last-ditch guarantee given to us by the framers to ensure that we had at least the bare tools, if necessary, to offset and put down a tyrannical government if it ever appeared. And the second point is that as patriots, as citizens, it's our responsibility that if our government does turn tyrannical, that we should defend our Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Thank you very much.